my colleagues, the Honorable Ministers of State, represented here by Honorable Kaduchu, the Chairperson and members of the Education and Sports Committee of Parliament, represented by 2 members of Parliament right here, the Permanent Secretary, Minister of Education and Sports, and your team, the Chairperson and members of the Board of UNEB, the Executive Director, UNEB, and your team, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning to you all and Happy New Year. I wish to first of all thank God for the gift of life for all of us here and throughout our country. By His grace, we have completed the 2024 school calendar activities that have culminated in the release of the 2024 primary living examination results today. As you all know, this is the first in a series of the end of cycle UNEB examination results, released annually in the basic and secondary level of education right here in Kampala. We praise God for the good weather during the examination days, since we know that we normally experience very heavy rainfall in November. The fact that God held back the rains so that our children could take the examinations without having to deal with the challenges of going to school in bad weather, it is testimony that our God is indeed a faithful God. Similarly, yes, I think he deserves a clap. Similarly, I recall that in 2023, UNEB informed us that the PRE was not interrupted by the weather in most parts of the country in 2023, despite the fact that it was a rainy season. This is not a mere coincidence, and I want to thank God again for that also. Now, with regard to UNEB's undertaking in 2024, we were all aware that the year would be quite unusual, as it would involve holding another UCE examination for those learners who had previously used the old lower secondary curriculum and were repeating UCE to see if they could improve on their previous performance. In addition to that, 2024 was the year that we conducted the first UCE examinations for the pioneer cohort of the revised lower secondary curriculum. So I want to thank God and thank UNEB for a successful end of cycle examinations and the season, as evidenced by what we have heard from the statement of release of the 2024 PRE results. I must also say that I'm pleased with the theme. The theme, as you heard from Mr. Odong, in quotes, embracing security and holistic assessment of learners in a dynamic environment, unquote. That UNEB chose, that's the theme that UNEB chose for this examination season. The security of our examinations at all stages of development and administration is extremely important to guarantee results that are credible. It gives an assurance to us as a country and beyond that our certificates are a result of a valid and reliable process, hence enhancing their acceptability. This theme also underscores the holistic assessment of the candidate. Furthermore, as you have heard from the Executive Secretary's statement, for the first time, UNEB looked at whether the learners had attained mastery of knowledge and skills in the subjects they study. Assessing for the mastery of knowledge and skills is a very commendable direction that UNEB has introduced to help us make meaning out of the aggregates and grades that we have been seeing our learners attain every time we get these results. Measuring mastery of knowledge and skills provides a better appreciation of the extent to which the learner has been able to gain in-depth knowledge in the given subject, how to apply the knowledge and analyze information in order to solve problems in environments that they are familiar with and in new situations as well. Therefore, I encourage UNEB to provide teachers with additional guidance and training so that they gain a better understanding and appreciation of the assessment of mastery of knowledge and skills, and how they can use this approach to tailor individual attention to learners who may be struggling in one or more areas. It is good to note now that our universal education policy has enabled more children to attend school, as seen from the significant increase in candidature and decrease in dropout or absenteeism. That is now at only 1.3%, as we heard from Mr. Odong. As you have heard in the statement of his release, this trend has been on a steady decline over the last 5 years, from a high of 1.8% in 2019. Nonetheless, I want to call upon head teachers and school management committees to pay attention to the problem of learner dropout, especially those that have registered for Peer E. We must look into this issue and understand why a learner who has registered to sit Peer E does not show up to sit these exams, even though it's on the decrease. But it's better we look out into this and know what makes these learners drop out at the last minute. So I'm pleased that during yesterday's briefing on the release of these results, the PS of the Ministry of Education and Sports committed to comprehensively look into the list of the local governments and schools from which the 1.3% dropped out, or the dropout occurred, so that we can at least know going forward what the problems are. I think all of us here and those listening to us through the various media channels appreciate that any school dropout is an undesirable state. And there are those issues that the government needs to address to eliminate school dropouts, but there are others that we may not know yet. However, let us all remember that each learner comes from a family. So we should also look into the ways of strengthening the family to play its role and obligations to ensure that every child who joins primary 1 not only completes primary 7, but also progresses to and completes lower secondary education at the very minimum. We need caring and empowering families to support learners by reinforcing the learning attained in school. Otherwise, the expectation that schools or the education system should shoulder the entire responsibility of learning and grooming children is not only unrealistic, but it's also wrong. And we must really talk to the parents and mobilize our communities to know the major role they have in the learning of their children. Now, coming back to today's results, I want to appreciate the work done by the Uganda Prison Service in offering education services to the inmates. This has been happening at Ruzira, we know now for some years, but UNEP has extended the opportunity to inmates at Mbarara prisons as well. This is commendable because the time an inmate spends in prison should also be used for education, which is an important aspect of the process of personal transformation and character correction, so to speak. I applaud the efforts UNEB, the Ministry of Education and Sports, as well as all the other stakeholders have put into increasing access to education opportunities for children with special education needs. Not only has the enrollment of this category of learners been increasing, but as you have heard, more of them are also sitting for the end of the cycle examination at primary 7 level. As was stated by UNEP, the 2024 PRE performance was overall better than the previous cycle, even though the proportion of learners that got Division 1 reduced. The encouragement I have for all those that passed PRE is that there are various opportunities for post-primary education in secondary schools as well as technical education. And to those learners whose PRE results have not met their expectations, I encourage you, I encourage your families to persevere and give PRE another try. As I stated before, last year, learners repeating P7 in UPE schools are still eligible to benefit from the capitation grant. So nonetheless, for parents who may want to consider a career in technical education for their children, I want to encourage and motivate them to aspire to complete at least O-level. As I said before, this is because lower secondary education is vital in getting learners grounded in basic knowledge of the natural sciences such as physics, chemistry, biology, mathematics, and other earth sciences that are vital as foundational knowledge, especially in technical education. So please do not limit your children's aspirations to merely completing primary 7. I am glad now that the items that UNEB is using in the examination papers are addressing the use of knowledge and skills in solving our everyday problems. Just as I mentioned earlier about the mastery of knowledge and skills, this is the thrust of our education, to produce citizens who have skills and competencies necessary to solve the human problems as a nation. Teachers must take heed of UNEB's findings from the work of candidates and go back to the basics of teaching holistically. I am pleased to hear that the local government officials worked closely with UNEB in the safe distribution of examination papers to sitting centers, with no incidents reported. However, it is unfortunate to learn that some school directors and their head teachers provided direct assistance to the candidates in the examination room. In such cases, we shall let the law take its course and thereafter subject those found guilty to the appropriate disciplinary process of the teaching service. It is unfortunate to hear incidences like that still happening in our schools. I express my sincere appreciation to all the government agencies, including the security forces, the judiciary, and other stakeholders that play a critical role in ensuring that the government delivers quality end-of-cycle examinations for their unwavering support and commitment. Thank you once again to UNEB, the board, and your secretariat, under the leadership of Professor Obua and Mr. Odong, for presiding over a successful 2024 PRE examination season. May God bless you, really bless you. Allow me now to thank the parents and guardians that supported all our children whose results are being released today. Thank you for all the sacrifices you make for the education and well-being of your children. My gratitude also goes to the teachers and staff in all our schools who do a great job in the learning experience of these young people. Well done to all of you. Lastly, I call upon the general public and especially families that have children that shall be reporting back to school for the new academic year to take the necessary precautions against the monkeypox disease. All of us have heard about that. The Ministry of Education and Sports, working together with the Ministry of Health, issued guidelines to schools on how to manage and respond to the mpox outbreak. Therefore, I urge all heads of the education institutions of learning to keenly follow the periodic updates released by the Ministry of Health and guide your staff, learners, and parents appropriately. Finally, I'd like to inform the public that the selection exercise for Senior 1 will take place on the 30th and 31st of January 2025. The Ministry of Education and Sports will communicate the further details. We expect first term for the Senior 1 cohort of 2025 to commence on the 17th of February 2025. It is now my singular honor and pleasure to release the 2024 primary living examination results for the public use. I thank you all. As once again, here we are, 2024 PLE results. God bless you all, and God bless Uganda.